everybody, to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle. Today, we are very happily taking up the idea of the circle and the center. And to get us started, we have Efrat Livny, and she has been engaged for very, very many years in a circle practice that originated from the Native American tradition, probably predominantly, and probably has other influences as well that we'll hear about from her. And this will be furthering our quest to understand this year what it is to be truly human. And I have a feeling that the conversation that Efrat is going to be telling us about and also participating in with us in a very supportive way is going to have something to do with what it means to be truly human. So, Efrat, I'm going to let you take it away from here, if I may.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. The second is I'm getting a little message. So I'm really glad to be here, and I always appreciate the gathering of people, because we all have to leave somewhere and something to come here, and that is a conscious choice. And I think that that is something that we sometimes forget to actually elevate enough, both individually, but also looking around and seeing each other and really appreciating the presence of each person. And so, so it's interesting, Renee, that you opened with the fact that the influence I had circle-wise was Native American, because to tell you the full truth, so I'll just tell you that I'm originally from Israel. I arrived in the Midwest with my then husband and very young children in '83, thinking, okay, 2-3 years to get through his postdoc. And well, that was almost 40 years ago. So I am basically not from here. And being not from here is an interesting condition to carry around. But one of them is that when you come to a new place, you just see what attracts you, right? And especially when you need to be grounded, you find the things that will give you that. Well, what always grounded me is somehow Native American traditions, aesthetics, wisdom, places have always spoken to me somehow. And in a very strange way, as an artist, I began to make talking sticks that were inspired by a little bit I knew about the use of talking sticks by what I then found out was mostly the Iroquois northeastern tribes, not throughout the Native American nations. But I started making those, and again, it was informed more by instinct than by anything else. And through my making of talking sticks, I actually found circle. So one day I came across a book that was called Calling the Circle. It's quite marked and very worn because I read it many times. And I discovered Christina Baldwin and Anne Linnea, who have taken traditional circle practice and have translated it into a more, modern day, not just philosophy, but a way of enacting life and gatherings. And so my story begins with sort of my own art and my own instincts, but eventually I actually decided to get trained in this practice. And a practice it is, and we all know that any practice needs training and needs trial. So what we're doing today, we're actually enacting a circle. It's a little hard with Zoom days to envision us as a circle. It is so angular and so linear. And yet, because it's virtual, I always say, use your imagination. Use your imagination. That's virtual too. And I think that if we can just sit in our seat just a little more fully and really consider that humans really always like to get together in circles. So while we say that this is indigenous, what is really meant by indigenous, this is an indigenous practice to humans, because humans, as soon as they discovered fire, they sat in circle around the fire. And that's where a lot of the collective life happened. That's where people brought their individual stories, and that's where communities that needed to deliberate and make decisions made their decisions. So Margaret Wheatley, who's a wonderful author, in her preface to another book that was written by Christina and Anne, this is their recent book called The Circle Way, she says that we don't discover circle, we remember circle. That circle is resident in us as humans, and we oscillate towards it out of some very instinctual, deeper, visceral realm and a memory that has come down to us. Even though we have come to favor many other forms of gathering, usually angular and linear with hierarchies, the round circle, the endless circle, and the fact that everybody is sitting at the same level and can see each other across a center, okay, across the fire, imagine, is absolutely essential. So function follows form. She really impresses on us. And I know that in what Renee and Cliff sent before this, there was a talk about the mystery of circle. Now, how does circle do that to us? Well, part of it is the form, that archetypal form that we place ourselves in, again, across from each other, looking not at the back of each other's heads, but at our faces, all sitting on the same level, and all looking at each other through a center. And so the rim of the circle is us, and in the center is what it is we have come together for, which could be as simple as a fire and warming ourselves, but could also be a very important community decision that we want to make. And by placing it in the center, the rim commits that all connections and all important things shared in the circle relate to the center. So what we have, if you think about it, is a wheel where we are spoked into the center. So the center holds us and we hold the center. And we can move forward as a collective as long as we sustain that simple structure. That's an energetic structure in many ways, but a physical one too. So just try to imagine yourself in that kind of gathering, that we could actually, all of us today, be sitting around the circle with the center being what is circle practice as our joint exploration. And so what I'd like to do is, rather than just do a presentation, I'd like to start enacting a circle right now. And what I'd like us to do, the first thing that a circle opens with is a check-in. And the check-in in the circle is simply to bring all the voices in. So, and it's a brief one. It's not a long. So I'm going to just ask each of you just popcorn in. We're a small enough group and it's hard for me to see everyone. Just popcorn in, say your name, say where your feet are touching the ground, and say one word or phrase of what brought you here this evening.
My name is Renee Tillotson. My feet are on the ground in Kaneohe on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. And I came here to support our learning about the circle and the center, which I also find extremely compelling.
I'm Mary. My feet are on the ground in Kaimuki, Oahu. And when I think about this group, I think family.
Mm.
I'm Diana Benici, and I'm in the big island of Waimea, Hawaii. And I came out of curiosity and love for this group and how we share.
I'm Elizabeth Crawford. My feet are on the ground in Madison, Wisconsin, and I love circle practice.
I am David, and my feet are 18 floors above ground in Kaka'ako on the island of Oahu, and I am here to be of service.
My name is Carolyn Dorrance. I came while the topic, the circle, sparked an interest.
My name is Robin Rohr, and my feet are on the grass in her front yard, Diamond Head area in Honolulu. And because of Renee, who always brings in paradigm busting world-class thinkers, I'm here today with you all.
My name is Bob. My feet are in Honolulu and the island of Oahu. And I'm here because I'm very interested in all forms of conversation and listening.
I'm Judy, and my feet are on the ground in Austin, Texas. And I'm here because I've been with you in other groups that have used this circle format, and it appeals to me, and I'm curious. I want to know more about it.
My name is Cliff Tillotson. I'm on the other side of the island of Oahu from Renee. I'm actually her spouse. And my feet are on some polished concrete in my shop. And I've always been fascinated by circles and cycles, which seems to be nature's way of expressing itself primarily. And especially Emerson's essay on circles, the opening line in that essay always intrigued me, that the eye is the first circle and the horizon is the second. So I'm looking forward to your talk on circles.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And right away.
Kevin wrote, wait just a minute, Kevin wrote that he's in Orchard Park, Buffalo, New York, and I'm currently suffering a headache. And I love learning about new traditions, which will hopefully clear up my head.
Okay, well, there we go. So now we also have an undertaking. The welfare of one of our circlers is also in the center. So again, let's just put that in the center and connect right through it. So thank you. That is exactly the kind of energy that just that remembering that with circle, while I'm here supposedly as a presenter, actually what I'm doing at the moment is I'm acting as your host. I mean, Renee and Cliff are real hosts, but for the moment I've taken that role. But it is only a role, because at the end of the day, all I am is a participant, and I don't want to be separate from any of you. So I will tell you that my feet touch the ground in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm here because I feel that circle is actually an incredible way of life. And for me, I call it my life support. And it's become for me a way of being, and I take it with me wherever I go. I've really brought circle to many parts of my life and to many groups, sometimes with, I would guess, I think more resistance than, and sometimes with more welcome, but it doesn't matter to me. It's sort of like, well, this is what I'm bringing, and then let's see how it goes. It's not about consent, it's more about an experiment. I love circle because it's experiential, and it happens as it happens. There is no plan. There is no outcome that we know about. The outcome will present itself. We will know what we went through when we leave, and we will know how it influenced us in our life. That's why I call it life support. and it's a life practice. So I want to do this in a very integrated way with all of you. And so I will do a little bit of presenting and then we'll just play around. So as I said, my role today is the host. There is one more important role in Circle, and that is the person who supports the entire circle and the host is called the guardian. So the host, basically gathers the circle, places something in the center, and the guardian is there to actually observe how it's going. And the guardian is armed with a bell or some kind of instrument that can designate a pause. So the guardian, and we have one, really their role is, first of all, a circle has little we start with a check-in, and then we go to a conversation circle. Sometimes there's several, and then there's a check-in. So the guardian is also the timekeeper. So once we finish the check-in, actually, Renee, I will ask you to ring the bell, and the way we ring it in circle, we ring it once to designate we're done with check-in. Then there's a pause. And when you feel it's time, you ring the bell twice, the second time, and then the next thing resumes. So why don't we just try it out? Can't hear it, but we see it, so we know. So the guardian, while designating these structured transitions, also can do can participate in the form of, as they observe how things are going, if there is a moment where a pause is needed because something was said that needs a little more space, the guardian can ring a bell and stop the circle for a pause. Also, anybody in the circle can ask the guardian for a bell. And so every one of us in some way is a guardian. And sometimes we ask because we need it, or sometimes we ask because we feel that something is mounting or something is stagnating, right? So there's a constant interaction with the energy of the conversation. So while I said I'm the host, and now Renee is playing the role of guardian for this circle, every one of us is a participant, and we are the keys to this circle. And all of us are equal, and all of us are leaders. So one of the principles of circle, the way I learned it, which I will say a little more about, is this is Christina Baldwin's and Anne Linnea's formulation of circles for our time. So what they say is a leader in every seat. So each of us is leading themselves. Self-leadership, right? We know a lot about leaders that lead everybody, but we lead ourselves first. Another way of saying we host ourselves. And when we host ourselves or lead ourselves, we can then host others. But the first principle is host yourself, lead yourself, and also take full responsibility for the fact that you're there, how you show up. So one way that I that I suggest to people, if they really want to feel it, have an object, have a talking piece, okay? So if you just look around, find something that calls you. It could even be your pen, and designate it as your speaking piece. I happen to bring one of my, I have many rocks. This one sits on my altar, and what I think about when I see it is the importance of imperfection. It's full of these little cracks. You know, cracks is where the light comes in. So whenever I don't want to be perfect, this one really works for me. And tonight, I really don't want to be perfect. I just want to hang out with you and see where it goes. So, and you can just call your pen, your creativity outlet or companion. It doesn't matter. We can elevate anything to be. So holding a piece makes us more embodied and more aware that we are actually here and we are leading ourselves. So leader in every seat, equality around the circle. And then the last thing is every one of us has equal responsibility for the well-being of the circle. So not only it's leading ourselves, but knowing that how we come ends up being everybody's experience. And we only take care of how we come, not how other people come. They take care of that. But knowing that we all take that responsibility results in the fact that this circle is held. There's one more optional role in a circle, and that is the role of the harvester. And the harvester could be a person who is listening for what the circle is saying. It's not a note taker. It's somebody who is trying to elicit the essence of what is being said. And they might scribe in words, they might scribe by doodling, they might scribe in writing a poem, right? They might even compose a piece of music. So it's how the scribe becomes that one person that allows themselves to take the circle in and then offer it back in some form. And the fact that the scribe is there sometimes, again, elevates the energy and the focus of the circle. And the scribe is optional. That is one of those roles that sometimes is there and sometimes is not. All the roles in circle rotate. So if we were to get together again, somebody else would be the host. And someone else would designate themselves as the guardian. And that way, none of us become any kind of it. And all of us have an opportunity to express the role as we see it, as we think it serves the circle. Good. So I'm going to pose a conversation question in a minute for us to just delve into. Before I do that, I'm going to go through a few simple group agreements that are always made in circle in order to facilitate the kind of conversation that will give us an opportunity to be all the things I named. So the most important thing in circle is actually to listen. So first and foremost, listen to yourself. Because if we don't listen to ourselves, we're not going to be expressing what needs to come. And our ability to listen to others will definitely be compromised because we're constantly going to be in that like, wow, I could have said, I should have said, what could I have said? What should I have said? So we want to be sure that we listen to ourselves. And then we want to be absolutely available to listen to others. And we want to do it with respect and we want to do it with compassion, okay, non-judgment and an open heart so that our words fall into that kind of environment, which we know is not easy and not so available in so many places. And so when and if you choose to speak, because you don't always have to, you can just listen to yourself and simply pass. Maybe pass completely, maybe pass to later. But if you choose to speak, you want to speak with intention and you want to speak unrehearsed. One of the most beautiful things about circle is wait and see what comes after you listen to yourself. Let whatever come. Don't prepare yourself. Don't try. Something will emerge. And if we are surprised, or if we are fresh, we are much better off than saying the stuff that we already know. So speak with intention, speak from the heart, do not rehearse, and keep it to your personal experience. So this is all about the particulars of how it comes through us. And as long as we observe those sort of markers, that's when kind of the miracles start happening. And then also only say what you need to say. Brevity is really important, so be selective. Of course, maybe you could say 4 things about something, but what if you said 1 or 2? And then maybe later the others would be invited, or maybe not. But the idea that we share the real estate of time and space, and so we use brevity and selectivity in order to say what's essential from us, but also to leave space for others. So, and that's something we do intuitively. You know, it's not something we want somebody to manage. We want to be, that's part of our responsibility towards the circle. Ask for what you need and offer what you can is another really, really important part of circle. So for example, if you ask Renee for a bell, because you need a pause, or you really are feeling very either energized or pissed by something, or lost or overwhelmed, or just need a breath because it's going too fast. Ask for what you need, but offer what you can. And then hold stories, you know, in confidence. Hold stories as what happened here and should stay right here. And then, as I said before, the sharing the responsibility for the well-being of the circle is really another one of those markers. When in doubt, ask yourself, is this going to be supporting the well-being of the circle? And if not, maybe you choose to not say something, wait till later, or find a way to say it that is truthful yet respectful of the circle. So, okay. Why don't we have a couple of bells from our bell ringer guardian?
Good going, Mary.
Loud and clear. Does anybody have a question that you'd like to just put in the center so we can speak to it in turn, so only one person speaks, everybody else listens. Maybe pick up your talking piece. So any questions that you'd love to explore?
On the idea of the pause, it seems tricky. Can you say more about the pause and how to do it tactfully, appropriately?
When we've all agreed, okay, we've all agreed that the pause is not a commentary on anything or anyone. It's just a moment where the energy of the conversation needs a moment. It's like a breath. So it's not saying, I like it, I don't like it, stop it, you know, slow it. It's just saying, I need a breath. So if you think of it that way, so you cannot prevent people from having feelings, right? And absolutely, whenever anything happens, people have feelings. So I'm not saying, let's say I said something and you find it very riling, right? And you ask Renee to ring the bell. And sometimes people share why they asked for the bell. They don't have to. But let's say you ask for the bell and then you say, well, I found what you said very riling. Then we all had a breath. And we continue. And I might be sitting here feeling a little, sort of a little put on the spot. And so it is. And I might choose to say that, or I might choose not to. And maybe somebody else will say something that will just shift my mood or show me a way out or in. So we trust that the circle is going to carry it. But if we need a breath, if we need a stopping point, we ask for it. And in time, people really, it's like music, right? It's the rhythm of the circle. The pause is part of the rhythm. It's not content. So was that helpful? And does anybody have any other thoughts?
That was very helpful. Thank you.
It seems that one wonderful opportunity when you're in a circle is you look around, you kind of feel a connection with everybody because you're all in a circle looking at each other. But in the course of conversation, should we, to avoid hurting anyone's feelings, saying anything that's too controversial? And if so, does that kind of modify the purpose, particularly if the group has to agree on something at some point? So should the circle be very much a place of non-controversy? That's my question.
And you're putting that out there for the sake of the whole, Carolyn?
Yes. So what do I do to do that?
You just did.
Well, I'll answer. I mean, I think that, as Efrat continues to sort of, or is reiterating that whatever gets put out becomes within, essentially. It starts to create the fiber, the fabric of, I guess you could say, the interior of the circle. So we create the energy that the circle makes. So if somebody were to say something that was controversial, I guess, I think that it goes to the point of you say what you feel you need to say at any given moment, if you feel like saying something. And so if that's what you put out, then the circle is required to sort of follow the format and listen, and then sort of see where the energy takes us.
For me, I think GEMS is a perfect example of what you're talking about, Carolyn, that we all have people are coming from different ways and different traditions, and we're sharing that, and we're not judged. It may be totally different than mine, but what I've experienced in the group is that we honor each other's different positions, and we'll say, that's different than what I felt, what I know, but I really appreciate it. And I have felt that kind of circle of love and support for holding many different forms of information. And if we don't understand, we can ask, but it seems like GEMS has really cultivated that when I've been here.
I think another aspect of putting something forward is, what is your intention in putting it forward? If it's controversial, you may know it's controversial, but is there a purpose for bringing it forward? What do you want out of it? So I think that's a kind of honesty of putting something out, not just for the sake of controversy, but for the sake of something that you want. And that's another way of kind of focusing on why is it being put out there.
So what I want to add in is that if we remember the center, okay, so a lot of what happens in life is, let's say, Diana said something and I have a different point of view. Even in a group, I'll turn to her and I'll say, hey, actually, I really disagree with you. Or not in my, no, not on my turf. That is not the way it's going to go. However, in a circle, we've all agreed that we are going to talk through the center, right? So if the issue we put in the center is some difficult decision that we have to make, we always relate it back to the fact that we agreed to speak about this. And so how we might respond is, I might say, well, when Diana said that, as I think about this issue, I feel myself quaking with what I feel is fear, overwhelm, aversion, whatever. I'll just report in how I'm feeling about what has been stated in relationship to this, which we are committed to. And that changes things, because then it is not between two people, it's us and us. It's me and us, it's you and us. And that really does change things. And if you are committed, you really have to have that committed to keeping that awareness, again, of the energetics. Always think wheel, you're spoked in, and you're spoked out. And if you keep working around the rim, but through the center, somehow that keeps us safer and ends up bringing us to a place where multiplicity, see, there are many spokes. Multiplicity is fine. It's just, we don't want to splinter, and we don't want to get into conflicts, especially between individuals. Now, of course, that happens in circle, and that's where advanced circle facilitation really comes in. I'm actually on my way next week to a circle immersion where I'm really hoping to learn more about facilitating circle when actually, hard things come up. Hard things, especially in the collective, when we are dealing with big things, not hardships for individuals, which usually open the door of compassion. So I think it's not a concern, but one of the ways we stay away from splintering is remembering what's in the center and how can I speak to that. Also, I will tell you that it is our responsibility sometimes to change the conversation. I can give you a quick story of, I used to run a community space called Threshold, and we would have monthly lunches and a circle, and we would have a topic. And one time the topic was the lovely topic of abundance, like duh, right? So we're going around, there are 25 people and everybody speaks to the topic, and we're about 3/4 of the way done. And then we get to two of my friends who are Native, and this was just at the height of the pipe crisis, and they tore into this lovely little abundance gathering and just kind of said, we don't understand what you don't understand about abundance, and where you think what you think about abundance is what abundance is. And that you holding this sort of like la space is right in our face. And man, did that change the conversation. And it brought out voices that were not heard before. It, like, that shadow was given permission to come right out. And what resulted is that at 4 o'clock, when I had to close the place, I had to move some people out of the door because they were still talking to one another. They ate lunch and dessert, and there they were still at 4. And so it's not bad when the demons come necessarily. It's just that hopefully the circle can hold them and can work with them. So that's my little contribution to this question.
before you begin one of these circle conversations or these circle meetings, there's a topic, there's a theme, there's a purpose. That's what I'm understanding. And that's somewhat what the host brings to it. But when you were talking about the abundance thing, I started to think about the idea of the dialectic, where you start with a thesis, but often the thesis is going to be challenged by an antithesis. So there will be conflict in possibly about the theme itself, but through that little bit of tension, you can go to a higher synthesis. You can go to a broader or a deeper or an expanded view of abundance through that, as long as you understand and you have the guardian, a referee there, to keep you coming back to the center of the theme, even though the theme itself, what you started with, may not be what the theme is when you end, kind of, but you have to begin with something, right?
Yeah, the role of the host in most cases is to bring something. Now that something might be what the host decides that morning, but it might be that, you know, we're gathering actually to make a really important decision about the designation of a resource, right? Or a solution to some problem. Or to facilitate, you know, a more honest and full conversation about a topic that's been, you know, sort of not touched into deeply. So yes, something is put in the center. However, it can morph in a gazillion ways because, you know, I might say abundance. And for David, it's like, oh my God, it's just, you know, abundance just makes me a little ill because, you know, look around, whatever. And I might feel abundance is all I long for because all I feel is lack of it. And so he and I are going to take that topic and we're going to toss it in the air and it's going to come up. It's going to be a dove when he throws it and it's going to be, you know, a big rock when I bring it up. And it's amazing. People will take like abundance, like what my friends did with that little word that seemed to go just fine around. And for them, it was like, no. So, you know, that's really the beauty of it, is that what is put in the center is absolutely not absolute. And the circle will form it. It'll morph as the circle speaks and relates and stops and starts and breathes, and something will emerge that probably would never have otherwise come forward, which is really what circle is about, is how does collective wisdom emerge from conversation? Because it's only a conversation. It's not an implementation plan or anything. It's a conversation.
I'll speak to the circle idea from my many years and ecstatic dance circles on the Big Island. Always a pet peeve of mine when people would circle up, and because they were large circles, they were 200 to 300 people in a circle, and it was amazing that some people would sit kind of in and block the view of other people in the circle, and I was always like curious, like, how can you not know or see that you're really out of circle? It takes that equality from center to actually make a circle. And where are you if you're the one who's sitting sort of in and blocking the view of other people? I don't know. It's just it was always a pet peeve that you have to. But you know, if you can't see everyone's face, you're not in the circle. But it was an interesting idea. And sometimes it would work and other times it wouldn't. But I did want to reflect, and I really appreciate this notion of holding something, because it definitely brings one, as you said, present to the process, because the wanderings of the mind are quite human in nature. And thank you for that little tip. I really appreciate what you've offered us here today.
In regard to that, the art of communicating to people that are maybe unconscious, that have, stepped in a little bit, blocking others' view, not keeping the circle in its more pristine form, but inconveniencing actually others. I find at this stage in my life as a writer and as a communicator that I'm always eager to learn how to tell the truth for the greater good. In this case, it would be, could you step back or sit back a foot or two? You're blocking views. Thank you very much. Without offending anybody, but not holding back. And I'm a huge believer in now in my life, my master's degree in psychology in early years put me into the realm of wanting to be a more elegant communicator, to tell my truth, which might not be universal, but to do it in a way that builds a bridge or at least is respectful. So the gentleman who last spoke, were you able to say something to the people that were kind of disrupting the circle? And if not, were you just uncomfortable and not saying it? Or if so, how did you say it so that it didn't cause upset, but it just caused people to be more conscious?
Well, that's something I'm working on in this lifetime about speaking from that place of compassion. I tend to be impatient. So oftentimes, even with the best of intention, it can come out. Impatience can usually come out as somewhat abrasive, you might say. Something I'm working on. And I appreciate the opportunity to kind of air this. So thank you, Robin.
Did you say anything to the folks that were, blocking views and so forth?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm the guy who writes notes on people's cars when they park in those electric spots and aren't charging. Yeah, so I usually speak up.
Very cool. And as you say, just we continue to find a rarefied way of communicating where people aren't shamed, humiliated, or are upset, but just to give them clarity so they can, be clear that, someone's watching and it's disruptive, and thank you for, giving the space to that. That's very cool.
It just brings me, I see we just have a few more minutes. I just wanted to say that one thing to remember about circle, that it is a ritual. And if we define it as a ritual, then the request to keep a form is within the definition of what we're here to do. And so, if you come into a room and you're about to do a ritual, and this is a formal gathering with specific intentions that come with specific forms, you can just say, when we gather here in this way, we sit in a circle. And the reason we sit in a circle is because we are enacting this full view of one another. And we're enacting the possibility of all of us both seeing each other and know that we are seen. And so in the interest of that, could everybody, and that allows, and again, that's where when you commit to a structure and a form and you have agreements, they're wonderful things to lean into. So you're not just out there, David, trying to, cultivate a more, a less impatient person, or me, always using my hands and, waving at people in ways that in the Midwest make them uncomfortable. It's just that if this is a quiet space when we don't wave our hands because we all agreed that we're going to sit quietly and breathe, well, then it's so much easier. And then we do fall into something that's communal. And I think, again, some of the miracle of circle that was in the quote, in that text that you guys send ahead of time, this like mystery of how does it happen that we
Mhm.
that this is like how it is. Well, it's part of it is because we're enacting a ritual, and we're enacting an archetypal form of gathering with very basic human agreements about how we're going to be here together. And then that holds us, and we don't have to be just lost in our individual, pursuit of perfection, or more of this or less of that. And the circle will help us. It just will. It'll nudge us a little here, a little there, and sometimes slap us. But it'll serve us if we're willing. So what I'd like to do now is to have a couple more bells. And then let's go around and have a check out. And the check out today is going to be one word of how you're leaving the space, or what seed was planted in you through this conversation. And just popcorn in.
Gratitude.
More.
Connection.
Exclusion of all the stuff.
Respecting the center.
Compassion.
Was that elegance?
Yes.
I will say discovery, always.
Renee often acts as our harvester.
I would be doing two roles in that case. Actually, what I often do is is there anybody who would like to give a vote of thanks to Efrat?
I'd just like to say, Efrat, that I found this whole hour to be just radically powerful for me. To me, it shows the potential that we have for having wonderful conversations, deeper conversations, more elevating conversations. But I think all of us hope to have those conversations, but you've given us tools here that instead of just having kind of just a hope that it's going to happen, now you've given us a toolbox of ways to make the conversations that we do have with groups and individuals so much more meaningful, more deep, more resonating. And so I just very, very grateful for everything that you did. And then I think we embodied the whole conversation today too. So to me, I found it very, very, very stirring. And Renee is right that if we do this, we are going to be moving towards, what did you call it? People of the future, was it? Citizens of the future will learn how to have these kind of conversations. So thank you so much for guiding us today.
Thank you all so much for joining us, all of you who are new friends to us and friends that we've seen in the past. We look forward to hopefully seeing you, hearing from you again. And Efrat, we are just all so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.